What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing well. Today is a special day. Today is part 5 of Overcoming Obesity, where we're going to talk about Phase 4, Thyroid Hormone. Now, I'm really excited about today's episode for a number of reasons. First, the Overcoming Obesity series started with part 1 back in May of 2018. And even though it's only been a 5-part series, that has spanned the entirety of the summer, partially due to my own personal life happenings, and partially due to ensuring that I've got my research ducks in a row before I present this big, overwhelming idea of an undercurrent theme through all of the problems regarding obesity. Tackling the modern problem of obesity is not easy, and many people have tried to make some sort of cookie-cutter or magic bullet approach to the whole thing. And I hope that if you've been following this since the beginning, that the Overcoming Obesity series has lent some clarity and some actionable items for you, not only to address obesity in your life, but also to address obesity in the lives of those you love dearly. The second reason I'm really excited about today's episode is this marks the end of a series of many interviews that I've done over the past 2 months. Now, I am so grateful and very blessed to have been joined on the show by experts, thinkers, entrepreneurs, and all-around amazing personalities. And I'm thankful to people like Craig Neesett for sharing his personal story with us, or Larry Hagner for talking to us about what's going on at the Dad Edge, and to Brian King and Dr. Adrian Chavez, and Warren Peterson and Andrew Bustamante, and the list goes on of amazing people who have come onto this show, lent their knowledge, their passion, and their experience of leaving a legacy of health and fitness for our kids, and in sharing in the dialogue of what defining dad bod means to them. But in the past couple months, I've had a lot of feedback from listeners on the show that the things that have made the most impact in their lives from defining dad bod have been when I have brought my 13 years of experience in health and fitness to the table and explained very complex scientific topics in simple, practical terms that we can all understand and that we can all use efficiently. So I'm excited about today's episode because today's episode marks the beginning of fewer interviews for the next couple months as I equip and gear everybody up for the holidays. As much as I love a great conversation with high caliber, high authenticity people, there's nothing better to me than demystifying the world of health and fitness and making it real and practical to you, my listener. So without further ado, let's dive into this thyroid hormone thing. The final phase of the hormone pyramid is about the thyroid hormone. And in comparing the thyroid hormone to the other 3 hormone systems that we've talked about, insulin, cortisol, and testosterone and estrogen, now compared to the other hormone systems we've talked about thus far, thyroid hormone is a very special hormone system for a number of reasons. First, put simply, thyroid hormones are the most metabolically active hormones in the body. There are actually 4 thyroid hormones. T1 and T2 are responsible for stimulating the thyroid in order to put out hormones, whereas T4 is what we would call the metabolically inactive version of thyroid hormone as it's put out by the thyroid. Thereafter, the body, mostly the small intestine, is responsible for activating the T4 thyroid hormone to convert it to the metabolically active T3 hormone. And compared to the rest of the hormones that we've spoken about, insulin, cortisol, testosterone, and estrogen, T3 thyroid hormone actually affects many more systems much more deeply than insulin, testosterone, and estrogen, and affects it very differently from cortisol. The reason this matters is because when somebody goes to their doctor and they say, "Hey doc, I've been experiencing low energy, I'm having trouble losing weight, my hair, my skin, my nails, everything looks a little funky, a little more brittle than usual," then the doctor is going to do the thing that seems the most medically sound possible, and that is to test the hormone that affects all of those systems combined. And so in addition to blood glucose, total cholesterol, and triglycerides, a doctor will generally run a thyroid panel. A simple thyroid panel will look at thyroid stimulating hormone, and we'll look at T4, which is the hormone that is produced by the thyroid, and then later converted to T3, which is the most metabolically active hormone in the body. In layman's terms, of the hormones we've talked about thus far, insulin, cortisol, testosterone, and estrogen, thyroid gets the most publicity by the medical community because it's easily tested and because it's involved in so many metabolic systems. Many times if there's weight gain, fatigue, and other problems involved, then you can bet that the T4 hormone that is tested will generally come back less than optimal. And since there's a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry around hormone replacement therapy, specifically around Synthroid and Armour Thyroid, to artificially elevate the T4 level, then it's a very simple magic pill to prescribe and to get insurance to cover the fix for the thyroid hormone. When I hear you saying, isn't that a good thing? Shouldn't we medicate ourselves in order to elevate our T4 thyroid hormone? Isn't that going to help us at a metabolic level since it's the most metabolically active hormone in the body? On the one hand, yes, there are some medical conditions that being able to replace thyroid hormone is an amazing therapy. That actually speaks very near and dear to my heart since one of my family members was beset by thyroid cancer very early on in her young adult life, and upon having her thyroid removed has had to regulate her thyroid hormone from an exogenous source. And in that sense, I'm grateful and thankful. But on another hand, I've seen many of my clients go under medication for thyroid hormone replacement therapy, which elevates their T4, but see little to no results with regard to their actual metabolic concerns that they came to the doctor for, namely fatigue, weight gain, and things like hair, skin, and nails, and trouble regulating their thermostat, so to speak. In fact, last time I checked, nearly 30 million people in the US right now are being treated with hormone replacement therapy for their thyroid. What's fascinating to me about that is nowhere within thyroid hormone replacement therapy is it ever once said that thyroid hormone replacement therapy is not a weight loss tool. All thyroid hormone replacement therapy can do for you is elevate your T4 and in some cases your T3 levels. For some people that may result in some weight loss, but for most people it generally doesn't result in many observable effects of their metabolism. And the reason I'm bringing this up to you, and the reason that thyroid is at the top of the hormone pyramid after you address insulin, cortisol, and testosterone and estrogen, is this. Getting your T4 thyroid hormone replaced while you're not sleeping well, while you're consuming too much sugar, while you're not consuming enough fiber, while you're not doing weight training, while you're not getting enough steps in the day, while you're dehydrated, while you're not meditating and dealing with your stress well, and while you're consuming more alcohol than you need to, elevating the levels of T4 hormone in your body is not going to help your metabolism. It's not going to help you burn fat better as a fuel source. It's not going to help you feel more energetic. It's certainly not going to help you build your hormone resiliency stores, and it's not going to make you any better at regulating the carbohydrates that you eat. Or in short, unless there's a medical issue like thyroid cancer or Hashimoto's disease, or a number of other medical anomalies that can affect the thyroid and parathyroid gland, then hormone replacement therapy for the thyroid is not going to help you reach your health and fitness goals, and it's certainly not going to overcome obesity. And so thyroid is a very important hormone with regard to overcoming obesity, mostly because it gets a lot of media hype about being so metabolically active, all the while distracting people from the very important nutrition and lifestyle changes that need to be brought about to address insulin first, then cortisol, then testosterone and estrogen, before even worrying about the thyroid. The other reason the thyroid hormone is very important to this conversation is because of the endocrine glands. The thyroid is the quickest one to crap out on you when everything's going wrong in your body. For instance, we've spoken about insulin as generated from the beta cells in the pancreas. Unless you have an accelerating genetic predisposition, it's very difficult to generate type 2 diabetes in the first 40 years of life, meaning that your insulin system is very resilient to the beatdown of too many simple carbohydrates for a long period of time. However, that being said, I've known 20 and 22-year-old young women who have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism and been given a Synthroid pill to treat their low thyroid hormone, because their thyroid gland couldn't keep up the output of T4 in relationship to poor sleep cycles, poor eating habits, and the stress of coming into young womanhood. Similarly, I've seen people in their late 30s, early 40s, and even early 50s succumb to the effects of cortisol draining their candle wax, as we like to put it, or a lull in DHEA as brought on by the fight or flight response. But again, the cortisol system is resilient enough to take 30, 40, almost 50 years before burning the candle at both ends seems to catch up with people. But that just doesn't seem to be the case for the thyroid hormone. Enough exposure to stress, exogenous toxins, the proteins of a rough food allergy, or even dysbiosis in the large and small intestine seem to wreak havoc on the thyroid gland. And for that reason, we're going to call your thyroid gland your weakest link in your endocrine system. And also for that reason, you find the thyroid gland at the top of the hormone pyramid. Because all of the things that we've talked about up until this point that affect insulin, cortisol, and testosterone and estrogen also affect the thyroid gland. And so on your way, climbing up the hormone pyramid to make your insulin system work for you rather than against you and make you a better fat burner, and to tame the stress monster by getting your cortisol system on track, and beginning to make progress on the man boobs and beer belly through the testosterone and estrogen area, you've also been significantly affecting the thyroid in a positive direction. And through the course of this series, implementing things like a sugar limit or an alcohol limit or a bedtime and wake time have all been beneficial for your thyroid up until this point. But now here in part 5, it's time to put the icing on the cake. There are a few things that seem to affect the thyroid system very heavily that doesn't play into the other hormone systems as deeply. And so here we're going to cover those together. Again, just as before, we're going to introduce 2 nutrition changes and 2 lifestyle changes that can be addressed in order to improve your thyroid function. And as I've said in each part of this series, none of this is intended to treat a medical disease. This is intended to be general health and fitness advice for you in order to get your hormone system working for you rather than against you. If you suspect you have some sort of medical disease, ensure that you set an appointment to be treated by a medical professional, as my experience in the health and fitness industry can't claim to help you with thyroid cancer, Hashimoto's disease, or other things that might affect the thyroid and parathyroid. Now with that disclaimer out of the way, let's talk about the nutrition changes that you can make in order to bolster your thyroid. First, during the 4 weeks that you're addressing this particular phase of the hormone pyramid, you could benefit from cutting out gluten and dairy in your diet. Now, before you accuse me of jumping on the fad bandwagon, let me explain something important to you. The thyroid gland is especially affected by immune system responses in the body. That is, if your body's undergoing an immune response, then your thyroid is one of the first endocrine glands to be negatively affected by that immune response. And so it stands to reason that anything that you can do in order to quell the immune response in your body, you should do. That being said, it's important to note that many people have food sensitivities that they are not aware of. A food sensitivity is like a mild food allergy, where the proteins and DNA in particular foods are reacting within your bloodstream in order to cause an immune response by the body. Many people have been eating the same things that they're currently eating now for so long that they have no idea that it's causing an immune response in their body. And outside of some complicated and sometimes unreliable testing, the only way to know if you have a food sensitivity is to discontinue eating certain foods and seeing what kind of effect that has on you. The most common food sensitivities that I've run across in my line of work have been to that of gluten and dairy products. Personally, I don't believe there's anything inherently harmful about consuming gluten. I believe there are some people who tolerate it much better than others, and some people who can't tolerate it at all. And the same could be said of dairy. Unfortunately for me, I've personally found that I am intolerant to dairy products. It's unfortunate because I love ice cream, but in the end, it's probably better for me not to consume that anyway, regardless of the sensitivity. Nevertheless, during the final phase of the hormone pyramid, we're going to assume it's possible that you could have a gluten or dairy sensitivity that you're not aware of. And the only way we would know that, and the only way we would get your thyroid to respond positively without having to deal with an immune response, is by cutting them out. I've also found that even if you aren't sensitive to these particular food products, it's a pretty powerful exercise in searching for alternative forms of protein and alternative forms of fiber in order to cut gluten and dairy out of your diet for a brief period. So whether you experience a significant drop in an immune response, lose a significant amount of weight because of the inflammation, and feel a lot better because now your thyroid's free to do its job, or if you simply find some alternatives to protein consumption than just Greek yogurt in your whey protein shake, then you're winning either way. Personally, I don't believe it could do you any harm to take a break from gluten and dairy every once in a while. And so, in the last 4 weeks of addressing the hormone pyramid, we're going to cut out gluten and dairy. The second nutrition change that we're going to make in order to address our thyroid hormone and hopefully help boost its effects is we're going to start taking a probiotic. Many people aren't aware that the digestive system is a significant player in the conversion of T4 thyroid hormone to the metabolically active T3 thyroid hormone. In fact, some researchers estimate that your small intestine is responsible for the conversion of up to 70% of your metabolically active thyroid hormone. Another thing that many people don't know about the intestinal tract is that there's way more cells within that are not you than are you. I'll repeat that. There are way more bacterial cells within your small and large intestine that are not you as an organism than those that make up you. I know that sounds confusing, but the conclusion that you can draw is that the health of your intestinal tract has a lot to do with what kind of bacteria make their home there. And it stands to reason that a population of good bacteria, quote unquote, could help the conversion of T4 to T3, the metabolically inactive thyroid hormone, to the metabolically active thyroid hormone. Thus far, you've done a lot of good for your intestinal tract, limiting your sugar, increasing your fiber, increasing your hydration, getting the nutrients that you need. If you've been following along with the hormone pyramid, you've got all of that on lock. But in order to take that one step further, you could be introducing good bacterial colonies to your intestinal tract, so that upon arriving in a more friendly environment in your intestinal tract, maybe they'll stick around. And maybe they'll begin to outnumber the bacteria that has been feeding on sugar and limiting your conversion of T4 to T3 thyroid hormone. And so during this final phase of the hormone pyramid, you will benefit from introducing probiotics to your system. You can do that in supplemental form, and there are many foods that you can introduce that can also introduce good bacterial colonies to your intestinal tract. My personal favorites are fermented tea and kimchi. But not everybody likes those, so I encourage you to do some research about some good probiotics that will do your body well. If you want to go the supplement route, I'll have a link in the show notes below. So cut out gluten and dairy for a few weeks and add a probiotic. Not a big deal, right? Let's move from the nutrition side of the pyramid then to the lifestyle side. For lifestyle changes here in phase 4 of the pyramid, we're going to talk about eliminating toxins from the body. Remember I talked about the thyroid gland being the weakest link in the endocrine system chain, and how deeply sensitive the thyroid gland was to an immune response. With that in mind, imagine the immune response caused by toxins that are constantly introduced to the body through our environment. During my run this morning, I was running on the side of the road and a very large truck passed me by. And while you're running, you're breathing in pretty deep and breathing out pretty hard, and I got a big giant whiff of all of those emissions coming from the car. And I remember thinking as I'm breathing, this can't be good for me. My run's fine for me, but what I'm breathing can't be great. With that said, it's important to consider that your thyroid gland is under constant attack by toxins that you don't even know you're being exposed to on a regular basis. However, I'm a realist, and I know that unless you wrap yourself in a 3-foot plastic bubble and go into the mountains somewhere, you're not going to escape them all. Before you get all paranoid about toxins in your atmosphere and try to save yourself from all of them, consider an interesting study that was done on people who work in a radioactive environment. They were exposed to very small amounts of gamma radiation, not enough to be cancer-causing, but enough to be of note. What they found for these people is that 10 years later, compared to the rest of the population, they were actually more healthy and reported feeling more vivacious than the rest of the population around them. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So as I'm talking about toxins here in the lifestyle side of the hormone pyramid with regard to thyroid, don't see this as something you have to have a crazy obsession about. Consider this phase of a hormone pyramid as a conscious break for your body from toxins. But I think you'll see that I'm not asking very much. As a side note here, if you're interested in diving a little deeper into the detoxification system and want to know more about that for yourself, I'd defer to one of the experts in my corner, Dr. Adrian Chavez, and I've linked below a few of his episodes on his podcast, Your Nutrition Prescription, to walk through the science of detox with you. There's a lot of hokey stuff out there, but this guy knows his stuff. So what am I asking you to do? I'm asking, one, that you take a break from two particular types of toxins that are very prevalent in most people's modern day life. I need you to steer away from foods stored in plastic or heated in plastic, and I need you to take a good long look at some of your personal care products. Now you can follow this rabbit hole pretty deeply, but for my part I'm asking you to, one, drink your water out of an aluminum or glass water bottle, and put your food on a ceramic or glass plate before you heat it up in the saran wrap or Gladware container. For many people, making this simple change from storing their food and their water from plastic to something like glass, aluminum, or ceramic can make a very big difference in their exposure to toxins, as some of those things can leach into the food that you're consuming and possibly affect your thyroid negatively. No, you're not likely to get BPA poisoning from drinking from a plastic water bottle. However, during the thyroid phase, we're going to give your body a break from that stuff. Another common thing I've found among personal care products that can be highly toxic is deodorant. Now, as somebody who's personally very proficient at sweating through my shirts, I'm not telling you to completely get rid of deodorant and antiperspirant in your life. But what I am saying is that during the thyroid phase, you might shift to a more baking soda-based product in order to keep you fresh down there, but give your body a break from some of the titanium and other complex metal compounds that are found that clog up your pores. And Lord knows I can't even pretend to be an expert in some form or fashion about what kind of face wash or hair products you should use. As my wife would say, I'm pretty low maintenance. I'll let you do your own research here. But in the lifestyle change in the thyroid phase of the hormone pyramid, I'm asking you to do your best to step away from some of the toxins for 4 weeks. And if we're limiting the amount of toxins that we're exposed to, it stands to reason that the second lifestyle change should be to support the body's system of getting rid of those toxins. Some things that you're already doing that's helping: 1, exercise; 2, hydration, which we addressed in the insulin system; and 3, increasing the amount of fiber that you consume. All of those things should be happening already and will certainly facilitate your body's ability to detoxify itself. But the other thing that you can actively do within your lifestyle is incorporate some heat therapy into your workout program. Or in other words, intentionally sweat for 10 to 20 minutes a day. Now that sweat could be generated through exercise, and if you're doing that, then fantastic. But for me, I incorporate regular rest periods into my week, and in order to maintain a good sweat while I'm resting, a dry sauna is very helpful. But you don't need to be that fancy. Some of you listening might live in the great state of Texas, which at 100% humidity and 101 degrees, a simple walk around the block is a great 10-minute dry sauna session. And so to recap the changes that we can make during phase 4 of the hormone pyramid to address our thyroid, we can 1, cut out gluten and dairy; 2, add a probiotic to our life; 3, take a break from common household toxins; and 4, sweat daily for 10 to 20 minutes. And if you can make those changes and hold them for 4 weeks, then at the top of the hormone pyramid, while we're addressing insulin, cortisol, testosterone and estrogen, and now thyroid, you're going to feel and look the best that you felt and looked in a very long time. Because now all of your hormone systems are working for you rather than against you. You've added nutrition and lifestyle changes that will bolster them and support them, and removed many of the obstacles that are keeping them from functioning optimally. It has been my experience that there is not a magic bullet in the health and fitness world. No matter how hard we research, or no matter how badly we want one, there's no one thing that we can do or no one thing that we can change that will meet all of our health and fitness needs forever. Genetics are different, lifestyles are different, tastes are different, and even our concept of what a high quality, high quantity life actually is differs across the board. But the one thing that we all do have in common is that we are all mammals, and we all have the same hormonal systems, insulin, testosterone and estrogen, cortisol, and thyroid, that regulate everything from mood and libido to body composition and strength. And if every 16 weeks we can cycle through the process of getting our insulin system to work for us rather than against us, getting cortisol on track, getting testosterone and estrogen balanced, and supporting our thyroid, then not only are we going to be working with our bodies, but we'll also overcome obesity. This has been part 5 of Overcoming Obesity, the Hormone Pyramid. If you've missed parts 1 through 4, I highly encourage you to get connected to those in the show notes below. And if you want some guided help in going through this hormone optimization process for yourself, I've also got a link below that'll lead you through phase 1. I'm always up for getting on the phone and always up for chatting with you about some of the obstacles that you're facing in your own journey to get your hormones working for you rather than against you. This has been Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. Until next time, guys, kick butt, take names.